called the Destiny Code, the Prism Code, the Angel Code, and the Star Code. And we're going to try to get through as much of this as we can get with you today. The Destiny Code, the Prism Code, the Angel Code, and the Star Code. They may not mean too much to you now, but when you really realize that all successful try to get through as much of this as we can get with you today. Businesses, the millionaires and the multimillionaires, the ones that really work have cracked all 4 of those codes. And the ones that don't work, the ones that do fail, end up cracking 1 or 2 of them, but not all of them. And then eventually they do fail. They fail. I was driving to the hotel on Saturday morning. The guy was a limo driver, and he's telling me all about how things were going on and how his life was going. He says, I used to own my own delivery company. I had 10 different cars, and people were doing great, and I was delivering all kinds of products. And then 9/11 happened. It's from 9/11, bam, my business completely fell off the map. I lost all my cars, I lost all my businesses, all my accounts stopped because of the security issues of people coming inside their businesses. The security issues just stopped it. And business was dead. It was dead within 4 months. And now he's back driving a car all by himself, working for somebody else. So the risks are kind of dangerous out there. And what we want to make sure you understand is that you not only need to have the right kind of systems to make your business work, but you have to have multiple of them to give you the safety that you need. So let's just talk about the 5 principles, and we're going to cover this just briefly. What we call, your business has got to grow at the speed of light.
Everyone say the speed of light? It is an acronym, and Bob is going to tell you what it means.
Well,
remember,
at
Bob?
The speed of light. I forgot the L stands for lovely, light. Well, we use that acronym.
He had a car accident. He has short-term memory loss. Say, oh. No, he didn't forget.
You heard a lot of us talking about this enlightened word, and obviously we're going to be branded with that word. And what we're trying to teach, what it really means is to build a foundation under your business where your business can survive it, where your business can be prospered and protected in a way that's almost supernatural.
Everyone say prospered and protected.
Prospered.
When Bob and I were walking back from church this morning, it was very interesting that that's where we were living, because our business, all you got to do is look around this room. It's packed on a Sunday morning. This is not normal in a seminar business. What happens is that we're doing the right stuff right. One of which is, we say, look, the first 10% you got to give back. We're not saying it has to be to a church or its equivalent, but you got to give back.
What we're trying to say is the concept that Mark and I have been talking about, and we're not the only ones, and we're not the earliest ones, but there is something happening. Something happening to capitalism. It's being transcended. Old-style capitalism is going to go. It has served its purpose. It has got us to the point where we can now create wealth. Now, new-style capitalism, enlightened capitalism, or enlightened entrepreneurship is going to start to take hold. You're going to see articles like that in all the major magazines. You're going to start to feel it all over the place as people start to say that the reason that they created their wealth was because they were creating their businesses to become a source of giving, not a source of getting. And a source of getting is now old-style capitalism. How many of you want to help spread that message? Let me see you raise hands on that. That's what we want to be about. And so we start here in a place where we can gather and enjoy ourselves, and then we go back into the world that all believes in old-style capitalism, where money is the secret, where we're pursuing your own individual pursuits and getting what you want only for you, and on hoarding as much as you can has got us where we are now. Now is the time for us to go to a new level. And that's what that LIGHT acronym stands for. It stands for, oh, by the way, this came out in the USA Today. Look at this. It's smart to give back. Look at that. Volunteerism varies by education level. In 2002, 29% of U.S. adults did charity work by completing school, by those who completed schooling. In other words, if you went to grade school, only 8% of people who went to grade school give back. But if you went to graduate school, 53% In other words, the smarter you are, the more it's necessary to give.
Because here's what happens. We believe that you start at the end. Where do you start at the
end?
Our dear friend Jim Rohn, the greatest business philosopher perhaps of our time, says, don't start a day till you finish it. Don't start a week until you finish it. Don't start a year until you finish it. Why would you start your life being an adult for most of you? We've got a few kids in here, but most of you haven't set up what are your life agendas. Because if you will write a 100-year agenda, some of you will finish a 100-year agenda in 10 years. Some of you can finish in a year because most of you are underusing your capacity. And what we're saying here is if you'll make I did this on Wednesday night, but we'll do it again, make an infinity sign in the air this way, everybody. And then a right-hand side say residual income.
Residual income.
Left-hand side say residual philanthropy.
Residual philanthropy.
Residual philanthropy means that you figure out what it is that you are here to score for. You are coded at DNA and RNA, we believe, to score for something. I don't know what you're to score for. One of the things we are to do is our mission, which we're coded together for, is to eradicate poverty, which we think is the greatest slavery on the planet right now. And some of you have been there. Both of us have been there. Both of us have been hanging out by our fingernails so low we had to reach up to touch bottom, and we said, hey, look, we're going to get out of this, and when we do, we promise we'll bring everybody we can up with us. Now, we can't do it for you, but we can hold up the mirror, let you look in it, and say, yeah, I see that I've got a bigger me. Everyone say there's a bigger me. Yeah, and you got to just, everyone say, I'm shaking off the little me. Everyone
I'm shaking off the little me. So if you're going to see the end from the beginning, you go all the way to the end and you say, well, if I really made huge amounts of money, what would I do with it? And once you've bought the Mercedes and you got all the cars and you got it out of your system, and once you've got the beautiful house that's just filled with all kinds of gorgeous stuff that just gets older and older and older, and you got that out of your system, and frankly, we almost all got to get it out of our system. Mark and I have got it out of our system, but we got it. We got it. And then you go, okay, now I've got everything I've ever wanted. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? You're going to give, you're going to give, you're going to give, you're going to give. So let's start right there, not as a way of being obnoxious to you, but we're trying to tell you we want you to get everything in your life. We want you to have all the magnificent stuff, abundance completely overwhelming you, and so much to give. So we're going to talk about residual philanthropy here and models that you're going to be using when you're that wealthy. And we want you to allow that little negative voice sometimes in your head that says, well, you don't have that kind of money yet. Just turn that one off and just say, go away for a while. Just go to sleep. Okay, now turn that negative voice off and say, one day, this is the way your life is going to be like.
So this is the 10th chapter in our book, so this is the end. And it said, why give once when you can give continuously? The only lack we have in the world is lack of consciousness. Everyone point at your devil and say lack of consciousness.
Lack of consciousness.
This is why we've done such a heavy foundation, because if the foundation... Was I the only one that heard that? Yes. I saw Bob Hope once, and he kept saying, I hear a ring, and he kept saying it so much that people started laughing, thinking it was part of a joke line. And what happened is that it was a domical shape. We were in Denver in a geodesic, and there were windows all the way around, and the crickets were coming in, and he was the only one that could hear the crickets. And so it made him crazy. Anyhow, the only shortage is awareness. Establishing your goals of residual philanthropy in the early years make your business successful. Everyone say today.
Today.
Now, wait a second. Some of you say, well, show me how that works. Well, we want all of you, when you come to New York, one of the places we're going to take you is, and go alone if you don't go with us, is 91st and 5th Avenue. Our hero is Andrew Carnegie. You go through his house. I also want you to go to Scotland, to Dornoch, Scotland, and go to his 60,000-acre estate, sort of like the movie we showed you on Wednesday night. But Andy said, I'll spend the first half of my life making the money, the second half of my life giving it away to do the most good and least harm. And as far as we're concerned, he benefacted education, 2,856 libraries. I wrote a book called The Miracle of Tithing.
How many of you have read The Miracle of Tithing?
Businessmen look at it and say, what's the miracle of tithing? And I said, you haven't been tithed enough lately.
How would they get a copy of it, Mark?
How do you get a copy? Just call 800 Soup Book and tell them you get it at
800
wholesale.
Soup Book and get a copy of it. It's a great little book. You'll love it.
Yeah, anyhow, I teach different than anybody else. Everybody else teaches tithing as your treasure. That's the last. The first is thinking. Point at your mind and say thinking.
Thinking.
Point at your neighbor's temple and say thinking.
Thinking.
And this is why... And we got Diane Baker is in the room somewhere. Are you here still? I saw you.
No, she left.
She had to leave. Okay, Diane Baker is she's finishing a process. When that terrible tsunami hit, we had a 650-mile, tectonic plate move, and I'd just been in Phuket, Thailand, a year and a half ago, and it was so beautiful and so scrumptious. One of the most idyllic places. One place I'd like all of you to have gotten to visit. It was gone. As were 4 countries wiped out. And we said, well, what do I want you to do? Well, I start with thinking. Where do you start with?
Thinking.
And I still want all of you to take 10% of your frequent flyer miles, but now I want you to call Delta Sky Miles or United's equivalent and say, I want you to give them to Northwest Medical Team, because we're still sending medical teams over because we've got 500,000 people not fed. We started with Habitat, and then Habitat had its own little internal disruption. But you start with thinking, time, talent, and then treasures. Treasures is last.
It's all about trusteeship. Old-style capitalism is about ownership. Enlightened capitalism is about stewardship. The money flows through you. It doesn't stop with you. If you ever doubt that question, how many of you own your own home or apartment or condo? How many own your own place where you live in? How many? Raise hands on that one.
Good.
Walk around the house one day and notice how it's built. Notice the grass and the foundation and the walls. And ask yourself a question, how long is this house going to be here? Will this house be here long after I am gone? And you'll say to yourself, wait a second, this house might be here for another 200 years. I won't be here another 50, 80, 100, 120. You're going to hold it for a short period of time, and then you're going to steward it. You're going to take care of it, and you're going to pass it on to somebody. And eventually you learn how to become a steward. Now, steward is when you become abundant. Ownership is when you become scarce. Scarcity is an ownership concept. If you own it, it's a very scarce thing. You're the only one that's got it. But if you're a steward of it, you say to yourself, I'll control it for a period of time, and then it'll be given to this person and that person and this group of people and maybe that charity. And for 100, 200, 300, 500 years, the abundance of that concept just opens up your soul.
Are you doing mortal goals, meaning short-term, am I going to make it through today? And the bigger they get, the easier they are. So you want to be doing immortal goals. And when I heard Schuller say that, I came back to Bob and I said, we built an institution. We're going to create $1 trillion, and we're going to have a facility that's one of the things we're going to build, and it's going to be built for tens of thousands of years, just like a lot of you have been to Rome, and we just saw probably the greatest funeral in human history. 5 million people. That's the number I got. The number may be higher, but that's the number I have from the media I read. 5 million people spontaneously showed up. I was in Washington during the occasion, and the ambassador to Vatican City was in my class at Horatio Algier, along with Tom Selleck and a few other people. But Jim Nicholson came back in Air Force One with 3 presidents and said it was the most spectacular thing, and he flew all the way back overnight. And on Sunday morning, he addressed us in Washington 2 weeks ago and said, he made all of us cry. I'm not going to take you there, but it said that this Pope had done some immortal things, and that's what we're asking you to go to higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of awareness. That's what residual philanthropy is at its highest and best.
So I want you to go out 10 years, 15 years, I don't know how far it would be, when you've achieved the kind of wealth you want, and there's going to be a group of people, a church, a cause of philanthropy, something that really you feel inspired, interesting word, you feel inspired to steward to. You feel how does higher power inspire you? How will you know where the money is supposed to flow through you to? How will you sense it? How will you know? It'll just kind of distill on your soul. You'll just kind of know. You'll just know. So the word enlightened obviously stands for leverage. It's finding what you love to do, because that's part of your destiny. What you love to do is you. What your inner wealth is building the inner part, and then the outer part flows to you. Giving, we've talked a lot about that. Higher power and bringing in the more enlightened and inspired parts, and then becoming a trustee of your residual philanthropy, which we talked about here this morning.
Everyone say I'm a trustee. Everyone, I'm a... Because Bob and I are saying, and we'll just hit it one more lick, is that you've got to be a good steward. Not maybe you got to be. You got to steward your earnings, your savings, your investing, and then your giving, but you've got to figure it out in advance. That's what most of us haven't done. That's why my cliche is don't think it, ink it, delegate it to document. Write it down. And we're saying write down your 100-year goals, and most of them are going to be accomplished. Some of them is short a time as a day or a week or a year, just because most of you have been scared. Everyone say, I'm releasing all fear. Take your hand, shake it off, say, I'm releasing all fear. I'm releasing all rejection. I'm releasing all abandonment issues. And all of us got them, and we're not going to go into any of that part of we'll do experiential stuff. We've got some stuff we're going to tell you that'll be experiential coming up that you'll be invited to.
So when you say the word light, that's kind of that's the acronym that it means. When I talk about the speed of light, that's the principles that we kind of base this on. And it just takes one idea from an enlightened person to live like the king for the rest of your life. So what is going to be the idea that gets, inspired in your heart? What was the idea that she got? And she's in a train and she's heading to London, and this idea just flashes in her head. She said, I have never been more excited about an idea in my life. This is a woman who's on welfare. Actually it was before she went on welfare. She was eventually going to be married. She was going to have a child. She had a miscarriage. Her mother died when she was 45 of, I think, multiple sclerosis. She had a rotten time after she had that idea. Then 2 years later, when she had nothing, she had been in Spain and she was ready to come back to England. She was on welfare. She says, the idea I had 2 years ago when I had something, now I've got nothing and I have no choice left. I have to do this. She starts to write the book that makes her a billionaire. And
I want to hitchhike on that story. Before we go on to the next guy, which we've got a second story about, is it Tina Turner, who's back performing again. And if you've never seen Miss Turner, when I brought my little kids the first time when they were 2 and 5, they were dancing in just scant seconds here at the Arrowhead Pond behind us. But when Ike took everything and left her with 27 cents, and she worked right here in Glendale as a maid, but the general manager was nice to her. And then all of a sudden, Mick Jagger looked for her and said, look, you've got way too much talent to be a maid at a hotel just because you're having a little setback. You come out and perform for me. She made all the money back. She came, bought this little hotel in Glendale, goes into the GM, the general manager, and said, here's the keys. You are now the proud owner just because you treated me right.
Isn't that a cool story?
That is enlightened. Bob and I are saying there's some cool stuff you got to plan to do when you're broke. Because what we learned in Think and Grow Rich, which we hope you read, and we're standing on the shoulders of Dr. Napoleon Hill, and neither of us met him. He was sort of gone when we were just coming online, but we were both part of a lot of things that Knapp did. But Knapp said, when riches begin to come, they come in such avalanching, overflowing abundance, you'll wonder where they've been hiding during all the lean years.